Hi, everybody. It's Susan, and I've come here to talk about the eclipse that's coming up on the 21st of September. But before I talk about this eclipse, I think in a quite a related way, there was an interesting event at the full moon eclipse, so the lunar eclipse that happened on the 7th overnight, evident on Monday morning, so the 8th of September, in London at the Royal Courts of London. There was a new stencil art done by Banksy, and many of you know Banksy. He's a very political, extremely bright and astute sort of filter for our times. Banksy has been around for about 20 years doing his thing and pulling sort of important themes of society out of the ethers and putting them in strategic places around the UK mostly, but also in other parts of the world, and notably in Palestine, where he has done a lot of work on the wall that divides Palestine, or rather Gaza, pardon me, not Gaza, from the West Bank from the rest of Israel. And there is this hotel there, which he calls the Waldorf Hotel, as a bit of a wink to, a nod and a wink to the Waldorf Hotel, Waldorf Astoria in New York. So it's the Waldorf Hotel because this hotel that had been there for many decades, the view of this hotel is literally the wall that was built in recent decades to keep the Palestinians in and far away from the Israelis. And so, anyway, quite a controversial artist. And the fact that he has pulled this off is a miracle in and of itself because there is such a high level of surveillance around London. It's one of the most surveilled cities in the world, as we are pretty much now globally all surveilled, but especially around buildings like the High Courts. And so, what he's showing here, this is a justice of the court. This is the way that it's still operated, and even though it's 2025, is that the justices will wear these wigs. They're very long horsehair wigs, super uncomfortable horsehair wigs, and he's using his gavel to. We can see blood on the very empty placard. He's hammering away at this peaceful protester, and that's in a nod to the hundreds. I think it's just less than 1,000. I think it was something along the lines of 850 people who were non-violently protesting in London on the 6th of September to support free speech, especially with reference to Palestine Action, which has been banned as a terrorist organization for speaking out against the genocide. So this is extremely telling. Often his artwork is revealed with a specific photograph that speaks really loudly to the actual meaning of the photograph. And here we have a barrister. So also with a horsehair wig, but it's different. Notice that it's a different wig. This is the wig of the High Court Justice, and this is the wig of the barrister or the King's Counsel that you would see rushing around in the courts, looking very important with his phone to his ear and his documents. And he's only just perceiving this as he's walking by. So it's absolutely brilliantly done. It's being covered up within an hour of its revelation. So that was first thing in the morning on Monday. But this is an extremely interesting message for these times because now we're moving into this Mercury eclipse, Mercury ruled eclipse, which I feel has an enormous amount to do with stifled speech and what we're able to communicate and what we're not, what is repressed communication. So let's have a look at that. So the fact also, just keeping in mind that the fact that this was walled up within it was cordoned off and walled up within an hour of being revealed speaks volumes as well. So not only is the poster or the art itself revealing this crushing of free speech and the right to protest, which is supposed to be baked into the ethos of the of Great Britain, but also the fact that even that was suppressed. It's a really meta kind of situation that we're in, and it really does speak to the times that we're in. And Banksy has a great skill at doing that. And this is the sort of ethers of Pisces that come through, where you can capture in a kind of a fragment of what's going or a fractal of what's going on, and you explain the whole. And this is where the dynamic between Virgo and Pisces is so powerful. It's a Virgo that is distilling something, pulling the information in, and Pisces is pulling it all together in the holistic way, pulling all of the pieces, all of the threads together, and allowing it to resonate universally. There's obviously with images, we're hitting a part of the mind which is less conscious, where we get it without having words. A child can look at this and say there's something extremely wrong with this situation, and a child would understand that this situation is quite unfair. Uh, so let me see. I want to switch now to what hang on, I'll take another frame here so we can look at the charts together. There we go. As I'm doing this recording, there's an interesting dynamic that's happening tomorrow. So I'm doing this Tuesday, the 9th of September, and tomorrow on the 10th, universal time. So it could be the 11th if you are, for example, in Central or East Asia, Southeast Asia, and so on. For anyone from, I guess, kind of from, yeah, Greece and westbound, you're going to get this on the 10th. But this is the annual meeting of the Sun with the South Node. And here, of course, it's very significant because it's coinciding with Mercury in its own sign. So we have the Sun with Ketu at 18 degrees 20 minutes of Virgo, and Mercury itself is only a couple of degrees away, maybe 2.5 degrees away, as it's approaching 16 degrees. It's approaching its own movement into the heart of the Sun. But at the point that Mercury is, it's under the beams of the sun. It's considered burnt by the sun. So it's only when Mercury is in the heart of the sun that we actually get the clarity or the purification effect of the conjoining with the sun. Whereas before and after that, there's a hidden aspect. It's blurry. The sun is too bright and it's overwhelming. And that is a reference to our capacity to communicate, our capacity to speak, to cognate and to be sure what we want to choose. Mercury is also about choosing and what choice to make. Um, and this is a really interesting dynamic of our times, but also in our own lives, where when the sun meets up with the South Node, and here especially in the theme of Virgo, which is always something to do with health and the day-to-day habits, how we structure ourselves, how we structure our lives, how we do our work, how we bring ourselves into the moment of everyday life. Notions of healing and illness are very strong in the dynamic of Virgo and Pisces. And especially with that sense of perfecting or moving towards a better something, an improved me, an improved situation, an improved dynamic. And here it's coming through the South Node, which means that there's actually something that needs to be shed. So it's the improvement is by letting go. That's not always easy with Virgo because there is this tendency to micromanage and want things to appear in a particular way. So letting go doesn't come naturally. And it might require a lot of trust. And that's something that, again, for each individual will be more or less difficult. But here, because of the Mercury being literally blinded by the sun, we really are in a situation of blind trust. So we need to develop this faith. And for those of you who haven't seen it yet, please go and watch my video on Saturn going back into Pisces, probably from 2 weeks ago. Saturn moved back into Pisces on the 1st of September. And so this dynamic is telling us a lot about that, a lot about the question of faith. What do I put my faith in, and how can I make that something I can rely on myself? Of course, if this is you in the Pisces Virgo axis and any planets particularly strongly in the last sort of well, actually, the second or the third decan of Pisces. So that means between sort of 10 and 20 degrees, or even the 20 to 29 degrees of Pisces because of that Saturn. This will be really influential already, but keep holding this thread because I'm going to guide you right up to the 21st of September. So within 11 days, we have this eclipse. And so the first thing to happen is this purification, a kind of a letting go, a shedding that is coming through trust. I have faith in this process that I'm undergoing. I have faith that, when a snake is shedding its skin, it's it has to slither out of its own skin. It's a period of time where the snake is extremely vulnerable because the skin is clouding its eyes. It doesn't see clearly. And so it has to act quickly, but also with the trust that it's going to be okay while it's going through that process. And this is kind of where we are. We're shedding our skin. We're shedding some aspect of our consciousness or awareness of ourselves, who we think we are, how we need to be. And I'll show you as we go through all the 12 signs for the eclipse cycle. This is very much linked to the eclipse cycle. We're in between the eclipses, which makes it even more intense. And yet the theme starts to crystallize as we go through this week, leading up to the eclipse. And even if you're hearing this after this week, it's still part of something you want to keep in your awareness of what is actually going on in the theme of the eclipse coming up. So this is a really interesting time to build up that sense of what you have faith in. Go back again to that video about Saturn coming back into Pisces and hear more about that. And keep in mind that we have some support. As always, we've got this Jupiter for the moment up until next July. We've got Jupiter in Cancer, very, very strong dignity, still in a beautiful trine, now separating, but still in a beautiful trine to the North Node, and in this also sextile to the Sun and South Node conjunction. So for me, that reiterates the theme of we need to operate from a higher level, from a place of discernment, but with faith, because our discernment is taxed a little bit and it needs to become a little more intuitive because now with the symbolism here, the Mercury is not operating from as rational a place as it could, even though it's very strong when it's in its own sign. So it's already doing better than another Mercury might do. It's definitely, it's in its own sign, but it's also exalted in Virgo. So we're working with better tools, let's say, than might otherwise be the case. But with the Mercury blinded by the sun, it's too close at this point, not yet having had this kind of recharge moment that it will have in a few days after at the Cazimi point. We're still dealing with things that are not known to us, or it's coming through instinctively rather than rationally. When Mercury is too close to the sun, it becomes highly subjective. So everything is filtered through my opinion, my idea, my feelings, my experience. And this, of course, is not an easy way to navigate the world because then we can forget that there's also other experiences, other things to consider. So that's one of the more challenging aspects of this. Again, as always, in the times that we're living, we want to be aware of the notion of not being clear around what we're being told, and so having a sense also of this intense sort of mistrust, you could call it a mistrust of what's going on around us. I see that very strongly here in terms of the Mars in Libra, not very comfortable in Libra. It's moving away from a sextile with Venus, so that's still very much within an orb of a sextile, so that's helpful in and of itself. And it's moving into an opposition with Eris and Chiron, and it won't reach the opposition with the moon before the moon moves into Taurus, but still very, very important to keep that in mind that there's a tension, there's a frustration that feels like it's not really able to express because Mars doesn't express itself very well. It's very often repressed or not really clear. And so part of this story also might be in the global sense, the bigger sense of things are being held back, but it's kind of like restraining horses at the gate before the race begins. And or maybe with more Mars, it's more like restraining the bull before we let it out into the arena. And this is the underlying kind of feeling that is building up towards this eclipse. Now, this energy can be used really creatively as individuals. We can use this energy really, really well. It's something that we can reflect with, sit with, allow ourselves to kind of digest, especially that's another Virgo word, digest and work towards understanding from a more intuitive place, which is coming through that North Node Pisces, especially where Saturn is and ruled by that Jupiter, which is in the home of the guts and stomach and the heart, the emotional heart in Cancer there. Um, yeah, so these are themes of the week ahead. It's something to keep in mind. We do have a Venus that is in conjunct the North Node as well. So this Venus representing a need for being seen in a particular way or having our desires met in a particular way that will be frustrated in some way. It's not necessarily how things will pan out for us. So bear that in mind because this is a period of time in between the eclipses where it's not a great time to launch stuff, launch yourself, launch a relationship. The energy is quite unstable and not necessarily going to bring a lasting, could be very valuable thing, whatever it is, whether it's a relationship or project, but it may not be lasting. So launching, initiating is not really strong at this time. Not a great energy for that. Right, let's move on. And I want to show you now the chart that's coming up for the Cazimi. So Mercury is in the heart of the sun. That's what it means, the meaning of Cazimi. Mercury is in the heart of the sun at 20 degrees and 54 arc minutes of a degree of Virgo. It's almost 21 degrees. It's still very, very close to the south node. So Mercury has only just also passed the south node and keeping that sense of the inherent meaning of these days. So first we get the sun and then Mercury, and then Sun and Mercury together with the South Node. So there's this clarification, purification energy that's happening in the space of time between the 10th of September and when Mercury moves into the heart of the Sun with the South Node right there, and still maintaining, by the way, the sextile from Jupiter. So again, with this kind of a feeling of, okay, I can draw on the wisdom that I've accumulated. I can draw on some sense of a higher mind, a higher power or the faith that I have in humanity, even for that matter. And then we keep in mind also that as the Mercury Cazimi is happening, Mercury is going to shift out of the Cazimi. So by the next day, 14 September and onwards, we're going to then start to feel that burnt effect of the sun again. So Mercury is reborn. Insights are possible. Really fantastic way of understanding whatever the dilemma is you're grappling with. We might find certain insights around world events as well. By the way, when the South Node is affecting the sun, we can see huge shifts in terms of global leadership, especially leaders who have prominent positions around, particularly those degrees of Virgo, or if that's related to countries, or if it's related to a business, for example, then that will show up really strongly in their profiles. The CEO is out, for example, or the prime minister is out, or the president is out, or whatever, or the king. These are the dynamics often of a south node with the sun. And that effect is even stronger when there's an eclipse that's happening. Although this is not a total eclipse coming up, it's actually a partial eclipse. So all of that to say that we're in a phase now where the shedding is continuing, but then the clarity starts to wane. We might have insight, but then it's kind of like, okay, but now what? Now what do I do with this? And then we come up against we're butting up again against this Saturn. So if we come now to the journey of and I just wanted to touch on the notion that the moon itself at this time is also coming into its square. So that's the third quarter square of the moon that started at the 0 degree point of so that was the 23rd of August, I think it was, when we had a new moon at the 23rd of August. Then we had our full moon, which happened to be the eclipse as well on the 7th of September. And now we're approaching the third quarter, so the closing square of the moon cycle that then becomes the eclipse. So just so you keep that in mind, around the 13th, we're also in the closing square cycle of this dynamic. And what that means is there's a resolution. And the fact that we have this resolution coming up at the same time that we have Mercury ruling that moon that's in the third quarter square, which is also ruling the sun and the south node, while the Mercury is in the heart of the sun, there is a real resolution. There's something that we can seriously say, now I get it. There's something here that I can resolve. I can do something with this. I can find the way through this. It may come through obstacles because, as we'll see, that Saturn is really pushing back at us. It's not always a bad thing, but it's, the teacher kind of wagging the finger at us. But I find that this is actually a really interesting resolution to close off this cycle, this particular monthly lunar cycle, as we approach then that new moon phase, which is the upcoming eclipse. Now I want to show you the eclipse itself. So there are two charts. It's important, just this is the Virgo nerdiness, okay? So this is for the Virgo stelliums in the crowd. When you have an eclipse, you have a different chart to the new or full moon. So the degree of a new or full moon is the exact sun and moon are in the same degree exactly. And here we have the eclipse degree, and the eclipse is happening as the moon is just approaching the sun. And you will find that will be different. Sometimes there's a bigger difference, especially for the weaker eclipses. When it's a very tight total eclipse, it's almost an identical phase in the lunation. Notice that it's not huge. We're talking about arc minutes of a degree. But notice I found it very interesting that the actual eclipse degree here where the lunation perfects at 29 degrees 5 minutes of Virgo. Here we have the actual eclipse degree at 28:59 of Virgo, which is really, really, really tight. It's still obviously tight, but it's even tighter in the opposition to Saturn. And what I'm seeing there in terms of our collective experience is that we still have to contend with this repression, oppression, inability to express, as we just saw with the Banksy image, illustrating that perfectly for all of us around the world, whether you're in the UK or not. This is the theme of our times. And so there's something still preventing this thing from taking shape. It's not that it won't happen. Remember, with Saturn, it's about working towards the result, working harder, working it through, trying to resolve. It's not about surrendering, ideally. You're not washing your hands of it and walking away. You're working towards it. And we won't know how this all pans out until the beginning of 2026 because Saturn won't be back at this degree until sort of January of 2026. January, February. So we're dealing with this thing, but it's not comfortable. We're pushing against something. And now what we have is a Mercury that has moved beyond its own sign and it's moved into Libra. When Mercury is in Libra, one of the challenges is that it can often be a little bit hesitant to speak up on its own behalf. And again, that's kind of part of the symbol of what we've got going on collectively. But also think about that in your own life. Where am I a little hesitant to speak up? And with Mars also at the now critical degree, the final degree of Libra in a semi-sextile with this lunation or with the eclipse degree, we have a similar kind of repression of action, a repression of what we desire. And even if we keep an out of sign opposition, then we have Neptune, which, by the way, I definitely work with. I always use out of sign aspects when they're in a close degree. There's lots of reasons to do that. So this includes the Neptune opposition. So we're still kind of not clear. Things are not clear what direction we want to take, how to express ourselves as individuals, how to express our needs, and how to reach out into this new pioneering adventure that's very, very Aries oriented. Mars, of course, has gone through its opposition to Chiron and Eris. So there's part of this challenge to our identity already in the days between the eclipses that's been happening since the Cazimi and then moving forward in the days between the eclipses. So if we come back to this Mercury, beware of the tendency to wait and see what is safe to say, or wait and see what other people might want you to say, what you think they might want to hear. You might be wrong about that. This is a really interesting dynamic because it's in a semi-sextile with Venus, so it's separating from that degree. It's really kind of on the edge of the limit of acceptability in terms of the semi-sextile. it's what that represents is something that's not comfortable in terms of the dynamic of communication and relationship. But what's interesting here is that there's this mutual generosity between Venus, which is in Mercury's sign, and Mercury, which is in Venus's sign. So there is something here that we can work with, but it's kind of a little under the radar. It's not yet able to move forward. And I think this bigger cycle, as we move forward from the eclipse, is going to be able to reveal itself as the phases of the lunar family continue. And I'll give you the dates for that, but not yet right off the bat. So this new thing is going to be there with lots of caveats. There's a lot of things that are emerging from this moment in time in a way that will be surprising, of course, and especially at the very end degree of Virgo, it's going to come in a way that might require us to grapple with something that we haven't got a whole lot of clarity around, or that we're considering so many other dynamics, including other people's needs and other people's participation, that we're not able to take the action that we would have wanted to take. So one of the traps to beware of with a Virgo energy, a very strong Virgo energy, and that's right as I'm speaking now all the way through the eclipse cycle, is to beware of a sense of dissatisfaction. So one of the drivers of our social interactions is often dissatisfaction, which can be really helpful because we're dissatisfied with something, therefore we want to change it. That's one of the sort of knife edge aspects of Virgo, where it can be a good quality and also a challenging quality. The Virgo is the one that sees the dust. The Virgo is the one that sees the bits of things on the rug that wants to clean up the rug. The Virgo sees that you didn't dot your I's and so on. And that can be helpful because you then it's this coming to this place of making it better. I'm improving. But if we get into a chronic sense of dissatisfaction, we really tie our hands. So the chronic dissatisfaction means that you start to border on depression. And remember, Virgo and Pisces axis is about illness, health and illness. And our physical health is supporting our mental health and vice versa. So be aware of that tendency to see the glass half full. And this can be very strong at this time because there's a feeling of I can't do anything about this, or whatever the this is. Beware also with the Mercury in Venus ruled Libra that you're waiting for someone's approval before you can make a choice or before you can speak about something. Um, on the other hand, it's extremely good in terms of communicating around what is just, what is fair, what is important. You want to manage that Mars carefully because Mars, again, can be passive aggressive in the Venus ruled signs. It can operate a little bit by stealth or by not being able to take the authority that it could otherwise have. So think about that. Think about those things in your own life. Think about how we operate socially or on social media, because that's certainly a very big part of our social interactions. Um, and watch out for the notion of sort of a chronic sense of everything is bad, everything is wrong, everything is awful. Look, as Mr. Rogers would have said, for those of us who are old enough to remember Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood, Mr. Rogers would say, look for the helpers. That's what he said his mother told him when he got upset when something was wrong. For those who don't know, Mr. Rogers, the legendary Mr. Rogers, was a TV personality for children, preschool children, and he was just the most adorable human being and an absolutely gem of a man. And he he would always try to find a way for children to feel safe and secure. And that safety and security I see very strongly as this Jupiter in Cancer. So the Jupiter in Cancer is our Mr. Rogers here. And so his mother, he said when he was growing up, bless him, he had a great mother. She told him whenever he was upset, like if there was a fire or if somebody was ill, she would say, look for the helpers. When there's something going wrong, there are always helpers. And this is Virgo. Virgo helps. Virgo pitches in. Virgo says, I want to do this thing. Now the shadow side of that is I'm going to help you whether you want it or not. I'm going to interfere. I'm going to involve myself in something you didn't ask me about. And that I suspect could be part of the dynamic that Saturn pushes back on. So, where Saturn is asking us to have solid boundaries, we could ask, is this my hill to die on? Is this my fight? Is this something I need to get involved in? Is this the best use of my day? That's very Virgo. How do I use my time day by day, moment by moment? Am I wearing myself out by being overly concerned? Not that we shouldn't be concerned, but being overly concerned about things that we cannot actually do much about. And with Virgo, we need to pull everything back to where can I help? Where can I be a helper? Where can I contribute? Whether that's giving money, this is my way because I find myself unable to, physically get involved in a lot of the things that I would like to see resolved. I give my money. I try to donate and to support causes of people who are equipped to deal with the thing on the ground. And that's one thing that you could consider, especially as Venus is there joining in to this Virgo and trying to understand where her values lie in all of this. Our values are also in a tense relationship to Uranus. Venus has just moved out of a square with Uranus. That often causes a reflection around what is, a personal reflection on what is important in terms of my values. What should I be putting my attention on? And that just describes a lot of what I've just said. And then, of course, the Mercury has moved out of, but it's still very much in an orb of trine from this Uranus. So just after Mercury comes out of the heart of the sun with this insight, we get more support for insight and creativity as Mercury is moving into the early degrees of Libra, just leading up to this eclipse. So so take it from the point of with my two hands, with my available skills, with my funds, with my language skills. So that's also very Virgo. With my intellect or my computer skills or whatever the skill is, how can I pitch in? How can I be of assistance? And thinking in terms of that mercurial energy of being pragmatic and practical, that is a very Virgo quality and expressing that. Um, Right. So that's kind of the theme I wanted to highlight here. Of course, we still have this ongoing story, which I'm going to be repeating ad nauseum for the next year of the Pluto trining Uranus, which is now really tight, really, really perfected through September in retrograde, and we're going to get, it doesn't actually perfect. It's really within like 10 arc minutes of a perfected degree of even nine. Is it even nine? It's seven. So, I mean, it's insanely tight. So it feels frustrating not to be able to say that this is an absolutely perfected degree. But anyway, it's partile and it will be perfected only next year in May when they come back into the exact degree, May, June. And so we're in it. This is the story for now. It's this trine between Pluto and Uranus. And that's a really big part of the overall story of social change that we're in. And then, of course, the dynamic between Neptune and Saturn involving themselves at the peak of this mini grand trine. And it means that what this mini grand trine is doing, anytime something comes to the last degree of the mutable sign, sort of Virgo, only Virgo, or to the very first degree of the cardinal sign, Libra, is it going to create these lovely kites. And a kite is often where we find a lot of optimism and hope. You can think of a kite lifting above it all, kind of finding solutions, finding opportunities. But we've got a retrograde Saturn involved in the kite, and it's trying to get along here with a Neptune that's not entirely sure of itself either as it retrogrades back into Pisces to try and figure things out. So we're still trying to move our way forward. Mercury is still under the beams of the sun for quite some time to come, and then it will finally be going through its retrograde. I think it's the retrograde goes through Sagittarius back to Scorpio. So Mercury will next meet up with the sun in Scorpio. And remember where we are with the Cazimi here. This is involving the Mercury retrograde cycle that we had in Leo. So this is part of whenever Mercury meets up with the sun, this is the superior conjunction, meaning it's the outside, not the inner conjunction or the inferior conjunction, but the superior conjunction, which means it's on the other side of the sun from the Earth's perspective. And so we're looking at the other side of the sun. So we're looking at the Mercury that is like way far, far, far from us, far, far out. And whereas in Leo, when we had that conjunction, that was the inferior conjunction. That was when Mercury was on the inside between the Earth and the sun, and then we lose it. We blind ourselves to Mercury. So it's a very interesting dynamic of the cycles that relates back to the summer as well in terms of the Mercury cycle. So you can reflect on that. So let me give you some dates here in terms of the um, family, the lunar family that we're dealing with here. And where have I got my degrees? Right. So this cycle that is now closing actually started 3 years ago, and that began on the 25th of September, 2022. Do you remember those days? And that was at 2 Libra, 48 minutes. So 2 degrees of Libra, 48 arc minutes. And at that point, then after that, moved into its square position or the first quarter moon phase. And that was on the 26th of June, 2023. So where were you on the 26th of June, 2023? And that was at 4 Libra, 29 arc minutes. And then it moved into its opposition phase. And the opposition, remember, is always a full moon. Conjunction is the new moon. The opposition is the full moon between the sun and the moon. And that was at the lunar eclipse. Remember back in the days when we had our lunar eclipses in Aries, Libra? And that was at 5 Libra with 7 arc minutes of the degree. And so that was the Libra full moon eclipse. And then the last quarter phase, maybe more recent in memory, was on the 22nd of December, 2024. And that was at the first degree of Libra, 34 arc minutes. And then that takes us to today, because now, as we've come from the last quarter phase of last December, we're moving into the new phase, the new moon phase. We end the previous cycle, we're beginning the next one. And as we go forward into the next cycle, look for these dates to find markers based on where we are now. And the first quarter phase, the opening square of this conjunction, is the 21st of June next year. So that's interesting because here what we're doing with this eclipse is that we're working on the basis of the solstice, not the solstice, the equinox degree as we move into this immediately after this eclipse, just a couple of hours later or an hour later, the moon moves right into the first degree of Libra. Then hours later, the sun moves right into the first degree of Libra. And so we're really in the equinox phase. And so that equinox phase is repeating the theme when we come to the opening square, and that's on the 21st of June. In fact, this is what this whole cycle is representing. I'm just looking at these dates. This is quite literally what this cycle is representing, this kind of teetering between the not only the lunar phases, but also the seasonal phases. So then 21st of June, we get, of course, the first quarter square moon, which is at 0 Libra 32. And that's, of course, going to be at the summer solstice. And then we get the full moon, the opposition, which is the culmination of this cycle. And that's on the 22nd of March, 2022. So that's the spring equinox, roughly, give or take a day. And that will be then when the full moon is at 1 degree of Libra. So that would have been a day after, because that would mean that the sun is at 1 Aries. So that's a day after the equinox. And so 1 Libra 35, that means the sun is at 1 Aries 35, which means that's going to involve our friends Saturn and Neptune again, except that the sun will be there with Saturn and Neptune, and the moon will be in opposition to that. So hold that thought, 22nd of March, 2022, because it's going to have a lot of resonance with what goes on now, both in your life and in the collective. So yeah, mark your calendars. And also, especially for those who have degree points in the last couple of degrees of the mutable signs, all of the mutable signs, so Gemini and Virgo, Pisces, Sagittarius, Pisces, and all of the cardinal signs, so Aries, Cancer, Libra, and Capricorn, let's say 2 to 3 degrees of those signs, they will be strongly, strongly impacted both by this moment in time and by the future sort of resolution or the peak moment of the full moon opposition on the 27th of March, sorry, 22nd of March, 2027. And then the closing of this cycle that we're beginning now is on the 20th of December. That's the winter solstice or the December solstice, the Capricorn solstice. And that's on the 20th of December, 2027 at 28 Virgo and 14 degrees. So that's a couple of days before the actual solstice. So that means that that year, the 22nd of December, will be the solstice because we need it to be at the 0 degree point of um, Capricorn. So, right. So this is a really interesting dynamic to follow. Maybe it would be the 21st, depending on the clock. Yeah, it's the 21st or 22nd. But anyway, follow the seasons, follow this journey that we're starting now. There is something very new because we know that the rest of the chart is speaking to that throughout 2025 and 2026. Things are shedding. That's the south node solar eclipse. We're moving on. Things are shedding. We're moving in a completely new direction. And at the same time, things are moving into that we're letting go of something so that we can create something new. It's just that we're still a little bit blinded by our skins coming off. And so may your skin come off gracefully. And we will have a look at the upcoming energies. Sign by sign. I'm just checking my notes to see if there's something I forgot that I wanted to mention because I did take notes actually. Don't always. I think I mentioned all of it. Um, oh yeah, what I wrote here is that the eclipse is the tipping point. So that was the word I chose, tipping point, that is moving us into the the Libra energy, not only the fact that it's this ending of Virgo and moving into this new cardinal energy, a new era of justice or a new symbol of justice, that's Libra, fairness and equality and harmony. Why not? Um, and especially that balance coming through relationships of all kinds, diplomacy and so on, justice, human justice. That's the Venus version of justice. The Jupiter version of justice is divine justice. Um, and so it's the also the only solar eclipse that we get in Virgo in this cycle. So because of the way the signs are not all the same size, or the constellations are not all the same size, the things move quicker through certain parts of the chart. And so that means that at different phases of the cycle of the nodes moving through the signs, we get different lunations showing up on different ends of that. So well, Virgo is relatively big as a constellation. We're moving out as we go into the next phase, which is March of next year. It's actually going to happen in the axis of Aries Libra. And it's not going to actually happen in the axis of Pisces Virgo just because of where the moon falls at that time of the eclipse. So the nodes will still be there, but we're going to get a, a new moon in Pisces and then the full moon is going to be in, no, it's going to be a full moon in, hang on. It's going to be a full moon in Virgo and a new moon in Pisces. Let me double check that because now I'm not sure what I'm saying here. Hang on. So the 3rd of March is the Virgo. Yeah, so it's a full moon. So it's a lunar eclipse, but we won't get a solar eclipse. This is coming up 3rd of March, 2026. Okay. So what that means is that this is the first sort of new start, if you like, of the energy of Virgo that we're getting. It's the only time that we get this really clear new start in the energy of Virgo. All right, let's move sign by sign and we'll see if we can move our way through this. I'm just going to touch on really quickly what this represents for each sign because I've already done quite a lot on these eclipses. You'll find them in other videos. I'm actually going to go back a whole day just so that I can keep the moon and whoop, to keep the moon in Virgo. Just so somebody mentioned in the comments in another video that the degrees were off in terms of the full moon. And I think it was for Capricorn. So for Capricorns and for anybody else, when I'm moving the chart, because I'm moving the chart, one of the fastest moving planets that we have is the moon. The moon, the ascendant changes super fast, the midheaven changes super fast, and then the moon moves really, really fast. And because the moon is moving really fast through every day, it moves 13 degrees and 20 minutes. It's going to change a lot as I move from one ascendant to another. So you'll notice as I move backwards, just to keep the moon, this is not the date any longer of the solar eclipse. It's the theme of the eclipse, okay? So I move back to the 20th of September. I know that the eclipse is happening on the 21st of September. And I also know that, as we saw in the introduction, please watch the introduction, that it's actually happening at this 28, almost 29-degree point. It's just over 29 for the sun, 25 over 29:05. And so please pay attention. Notice what's happening on the screen as well to learn how these things work, rather than assuming that something is wrong. That's how we learn. If you assume you already know, you're not learning anything. Your cup is too full. You need to empty your cup a little bit and then you can fill your cup. So pay attention from the beginning, especially always watch the introduction, which explains these dynamics. Okay. So the moon is nowhere near the sun, and it's still going to be the theme of the eclipse. And for Aries, it's the sixth house. So you get the purest message of Virgo, Aries, sun, moon, and ascendant. And as always, the sun represents you, your conscious awareness, your sense of identity, your sense of self. It represents male figures in general, figureheads as well. And also, it represents the father, generally speaking, father figure. And so when we look at the sun, it can also represent your career. If you're looking from the ascendant, it's how you show up and how you navigate your way through life. It's how you engage in life. And this is the area of life that things are going to be most obvious. And for Aries, sun, moon, or ascendant, this will be the sixth house for you. And then if it's the moon, it's how you're intuiting or how you're feeling about life. It's more subjective. It's much more coming through you and the way that you're interacting in life. All right, so that applies for all the signs, and I'll just break this off as a separate indication. It's always under the video description. There is a video description underneath every single video with lots of other information. So here, for Aries, Sun, Moon, and Rising, you are having this eclipse in your sixth house of everyday life. How do you do every day? Is there a need for a new meaning in your life in terms of how you do your work? This is also part of the theme of the eclipse, which is, I forgot to mention that in the intro, it's really kind of like a search for meaning. How do I actually navigate my life every day? Am I doing meaningful things? Am I able to reach out into my life in a meaningful way? And if there is a sense that that's not true, then there's a part of you that is ready to shed something about the way you work, about an attitude you might hold to health issues or some kind of illness that you might be dealing with. Or this could also be some spiritual or psychological illness as well, because it's mental and physical health that are in the axis of Pisces and Virgo. Where am I playing the martyr or the victim in my story? Where am I in an engagement where I feel like I'm always the one cleaning up after everybody? And is that actually true, or is that you choosing to play that role? And this would be a great time to really become aware of that, become aware of those dynamics in such a way that you can really reach out into a whole new attitude to your literal everyday life and turn it around and create something very, very new for you. I'm going to be doing more about this eclipse, so I'm not going to spend a long time here do come back to the Saturn returning to Pisces video for more information about this Saturn. You might be finding that your obstruction, let's say, to your everyday is coming from an attitude that might be unconscious, or it might be behavior that you haven't got under control. Might even be bad habits, for example, or addictions, or something that's not helpful to you that needs a little bit more strict control. But either way, this is part of the cycle where you will absolutely be dealing with that. And you can come out in a place where you really find yourself clear. What is my purpose? What meaning am I giving to the work that I do every day? And how is that working for me? You have great support coming from your Jupiter in the fourth house, which is really supporting you psychologically, emotionally, and even in terms of the foundation of your life that might represent also your family, your lineage, or the family that you're creating. So enjoy and make the most of this eclipse, and I will see you in the next video. For Taurus, this eclipse is happening in your fifth house. It's a lot to do with love and children and the relationship that you might have to both. And there can be also a sense of where you create from, what it is that you'd like to create and how you'd like to create. Your ruler is involved. She's in an in-sign conjunction, so she's not super close to the eclipse, but she's in the same sign at the time of the eclipse. So she's definitely playing a role, and Venus will also cross over those degrees in 3 weeks or so from now. We'll complete that work, or maybe it's more like it'll be mid-October to late October. Venus will be traveling over those degrees. So that's interesting because you can start to pay attention as your ruler is involved in this. Pay attention to all those fifth house matters. That can involve your grandchildren as well, your sense of what the future holds, how you want to express happiness, where you may have allowed yourself to feel disappointment, where you may have allowed yourself to kind of bury your creative energy under fussiness or a sense of perfectionism. This is one of the tendencies that you can find with Taurus in general, because there can be a self-criticism or a fussiness that is part of the fact that Virgo is on your fifth house. Like, it's difficult to just be happy. There's always a little something that spoils my happiness. So how can I shed that? How can I let go of that? Where can I work with that sense of things are fine already now, and I can work through a higher degree of purpose to be able to overcome this fussiness on the day-to-day level. We see also Saturn in opposition from the 11th house of your future. So what you're changing here is going to make a difference in terms of how you see your future. And it's also going to make a difference in terms of how you relate to people in general, in society, around social groups, um, around the people you rely on for supporting what you do out in the world, whether that's your career or a vocation or just how you show up out in the world. There's going to be a changing dynamic in terms of your connections with people, with more the everyday acquaintances and the people that you um, hang out with because you share beliefs, for example, or you share the same politics, or you share the same vision. This might be something to do with earnings. If you are still actively earning money from an occupation, this is the house of the gains that you receive from that occupation, or gains that you receive from parents, for example, parents helping you out, for example. But there's something that's not entirely there for you. And so you're learning how to be more responsible in that area, and maybe even playing the role of a leader in that area. And that will be based on a sense of what is that expression? No, perfect is the enemy of good enough, or something like that. Somebody please correct me in the comments. I'll find that Virgo in the comments to help me with that, perfecting that comment. So notice that you can be your own worst enemy here. Here we also have the Chiron in the 12th and the Neptune in the 12th. I've said lots about that in the past, and you can also go back a couple of months maybe to the Neptune moving into Aries video that I did, where you can find out more information about that in terms of taking care of your unconscious, or not overwhelming yourself in the unconscious area of your chart, making sure that you're stepping up for yourself as your own advocate. Um, yeah, avoiding disillusionment as well as the sense of disappointment and the never good enough. Okay, that's really the significance here. Venus rules your sixth house as well of every day, and that's where we find Mercury and Mars. And so there's a very strong sense that you have a lot to work on at this time, that you're grappling with a lot and that will feel easier or you'll feel more up to the task very soon after this eclipse. So you take the energy of awareness that is available to you from as I'm doing this now on the 10th, all the way through the eclipse cycle on the 21st, and you move it forward in the last week of, or last 10 days of September, move it forward into action, taking action on something. So it's supportive of you. It's trinal to you, Taurus, and so that's extremely supportive. And you also have a lot of community support. You have a lot of support in terms of your extended family as well, and also even in terms of your outlook, because the third house is your mind, giving you an expanded sense of outlook at the same time that you've had a lot of insight building from the aspects that I described in the introduction. So best wishes for this, Taurus, and I will see you in the next video. Gemini, this is happening in your fourth house. It's angular to you. That means that it's quite important. It's very solid. It's about the base of your life. It's about something in the foundation of your chart, and the foundation of life itself can have something to do with how you feel about yourself. Your ruler is also the ruler of your fourth house. So Mercury rules both Gemini as well as Virgo. And now Mercury has moved into your fifth house. So whatever you're shedding here or understanding, you've realized and recognized it's time for a change. I need to move in this new direction, is about working towards more happiness, more creative fulfillment, more of a sense of perhaps harmony with children or around the subject of children. Even if you don't have any, that can also be a part of knowledge or learning, wisdom, because of the energy that's generated through the insight that Mercury has accumulated in the process leading up to this eclipse, as it was Cazimi on the 13th, just the week before. And you have Mars also in that fifth house, agitating for something inspiring and fun and different to create, to work upon. That might be a love relationship, for example. That's one way that that can look. If it is around children, there's a lot of support for you because Jupiter is in your second house of family. And of course, the moon is ruling that Jupiter from the fourth. So there's something here that is involving this new cycle, a new cycle of family. And Venus is in the fourth as well to make that feel um, more important in terms of resolving perhaps even relationship dynamics that need to be resolved. Um, Beware of being overly critical or frustrated or disappointed without also offering solutions. So the solutions come through the North Node in the 10th. It's a vision for the marital couple, or meaning the 10th house is your social status, or it's a vision for your role out in the world. What is the meaning I give to the work that I do in the world? What is the meaning I give to my marital couple? How do I reach out into supporting my family, my parents? New relationship with my parents. Saturn is in the 10th. Do watch my video on Saturn moving back into Pisces for more. It's in opposition to this. So there's something about where you feel your place is out in the world that hasn't perhaps fully been defined yet, and that is making it difficult to really launch into this new thing. But think of this as a seeding moment. You don't have to like get out of bed on the 22nd and make everything work. You're seeding this moment. And then you're going to go forward from here and note that this is a cycle that is very, very long lasting. It takes a year and a half to see the results, the peak results, which is the lunar eclipse that you're going to find in 2027. Listen to the introduction if you haven't already. All right, so make the most of this then, Gemini. It looks like, again, a very, very important moment in your life, restructuring a lot of your life. Cancer, Sun, Moon, and Ascendant, especially Moon, and anyway, anything to do with Cancer is always going to be involved in all lunations and most especially eclipses. And so here we have this dynamic, this energy of your ruler being eclipsed. And so there's an aspect of yourself that is being shed in the notion in the area of the third house. This has a lot to do with your day-to-day running around. What do I do? How do I put my energy in the day-to-day neighborhood or in my day-to-day busyness and the choices that I make day by day, my to-do list. What does my to-do list look like? Is it overwhelming you? And that's often a problem with Cancer because you have Jupiter ruling your sixth house, so you never sit down. And I can say that with confidence because I have Cancer rising and moon. And this notion, this third house dynamic is saying whatever's not working for you, you've got to shut that down, make something change here. And you change based on what you give meaning to. You change based on the thing that you need to reconstruct around why you get out of bed. What's your ikigai? And figure out how it is that you need to do this in a new way so that you can bring more harmony into your health, into your life. Remember, Virgo is part of the support of what we do every day that brings us health or takes away from health. Cancer, depending on your chart, but Cancer can often have wavering health, and that comes with the waxing and waning of the moon. And so health issues can also be part of the story that can be also deliberately or specifically because of overwork, over mentalization, too much thinking, anxiety. Cancer is known for anxiety. Guess why? Because we've got Gemini ruling the 12th house, and now with Uranus there, and ruled by Mercury, and then the other Mercury ruled sign ruling the third house of the mind and communication and so on. So there you go. That's why. And so this is where this is happening. So where can you be in a better place with your everyday engagement? Where can you pull it back? Where can you work smarter rather than harder? With the opposition from Saturn, Saturn is saying, yeah, you've got these big goals and aims, you have this sense of purpose, you have this capacity, but you know what? There's still something you need to look at. And do listen to my Saturn in Pisces video, probably from about 2 weeks ago, that you'll get a lot more information about that. Or watch it again if you have forgotten. We're overwhelmed with information, so fair enough. Um, and this is definite. Do listen also to the introduction because this is definitely a phase where we really do need to question a lot of the way that we are operating and have a lot of faith. And this is very specifically what is being spoken to for Cancer, where the North Node is in the ninth house. So that's the house of God or the road to God, the sense of what do I have faith in? What do I believe? Particularly as simultaneously you've got Pluto in the eighth connecting you to something more hidden, occult, sort of mystery school stuff. And you've got Uranus in the 12th, which is about the connection to spirit. So how do you use your mind? Are you preoccupied with minutia that distract you from a higher way of thinking or living? Are you preoccupied with the busyness of your work? Yes. Yes. Do I hear a yes? Um, and are you needing more quiet time? Yes, yes, we do, don't we? Okay, and there we are. So that's it, Cancer. And so you see also Mercury and Mars in the fourth house. There can be some agitation around house and home that requires your attention and effort. And again, will be part of the resolution that comes in the week following this eclipse, but it's part of a new cycle beginning. Remember not to focus only on the days around the eclipse, but think long term. This is something you will see revealing itself over weeks and months ahead. And in this particular cycle, you'll see the culmination of the cycle a year and a half from now, as we get to the early part of 2027, when there's the full moon that relates to this lunar family. All right, good luck with this then, my fellow crabs, and I will see you in the next video. Leo, you're very concerned by any type of event around the moon because, of course, you are represented by the sun. And this is where the sun itself is in its new moon phase. So the sun and the moon come together. Not only are you overwhelming the sun by creating this, sorry, you're overwhelming the moon, blocking out the moon but the south node is blocking out the both of you. So both of you are somehow being affected, and this is where you question your values. What is going on in terms of my possessions, my valuables, but also my self-worth and my values? How do I manage my life through that? Is this about your family? Is this about the way you choose your words and the way that you communicate through the words that you choose, or the capacity to use my voice? As we saw in the initial part of this, please watch the beginning of this. There is a challenge around speaking openly. That's a collective challenge, but also maybe very personal to you. And you're learning how to speak up. You're learning how to use your voice. You're learning how to say the things that come from your heart, Leo. That's what's necessary for you now, coming from the heart, and speaking from that place of this is who I am, this is me. Often for Leos, it's not so easy to show up. That's the sort of paradox of Leo, sun, moon, and rising, is that we believe often that they're just always there, full on and switched on and fully confident. But very seldom is that a fully formed Leo, that it usually takes decades to learn how to get to that. And this is a big, big step in that direction, speaking from your values, speaking from your heart, speaking from a place of what has meaning for you. That might be something to do with an actual literal financial issue, might be something that you need to express around how you share resources. Is there an imbalance in terms of how you share resources? Maybe it's something to do with marital intimacy or intimacy within a partnership, that's a cohabitation or a long-term relationship, or even non-long-term relationships for that matter. And then you come back to your values and see, is that working for you, for example? Are you getting what you want out of relationships? Because that's the big question that Pluto is asking you. Are you getting what you want out of relationships? And how are you in this power struggle for a very, very long time already? This is part of the deal. I'm going to do a separate video which talks about this square from Mars to Pluto, which will be a bigger part of that question. But very concerning to you, very much involving you. So this is an opportunity to think in terms of what you've understood in the time between the two eclipses leading up to this moment, because now you have more of a opportunity or capacity to share your opinion, to speak out about what it is that's important for you, what it is you want to say. Do also please look at the Saturn in Pisces, the Saturn retrograding back into Pisces video that I did a couple of weeks ago, because it tells you a lot also about this particular dynamic of our times. And that takes you right through the latter months of 2025 and the first couple of months of 2026. So make the most of this. It's a real opportunity for you to refine your sense of what it is that you need to clarify, what you need to shed also in terms of perhaps even an attachment to material things or the stuff of life that you can liberate yourself from and see in a new way. Listen to the introduction to hear more about that. Okay. See you in the next video, Leo. So Virgo, you already know this is all about you. This is a really big moment in time for you, not just because of this particular eclipse, but it already started at the beginning of 2025 when the nodes shifted into your sign. And in fact, the nodes came into your sign, and the immediate story was at this same degree in January. So the middle of January, the nodes were at this same degree. So you can also look back, if you've got placements here, look back at what was going on for you around that time, because something really significant must have been happening around that time. I should have mentioned that in the intro. There's always so many things. So here what we have is the sun and moon together in opposition to Saturn in your house of relationship, where the south node is on your side, the north node is on the side of the other. I've done a lot of videos about this axis, so go back and listen to those in a general sense, because this will help you all the way through this time until next July. 2026. But in this specific moment, think in terms of shedding an aspect of yourself that may hold yourself to such a high standard that it depletes your joy, that it makes it difficult to be at ease or happy in your relationship dynamics, just happy for no reason. You have an enormous amount of prospects in terms of a vision for your future, but also gains from what you do, and the support of important people, people that are really on your side, cheering you on, saying, you can do this. let's go in this direction, including meeting somebody important through a friend, for example, or because the relationship you get involved in is important to you or important and taking on legs, as it were. It is also going to bring you a better kind of community or a better sense of your future. So you're in a really rich time and you want to really be clear what about me is holding me back. And this is the tricky part. You might need somebody to bounce ideas off. That's the Saturn in your house of relationships. So sit down next to, in opposition to somebody that you call a good friend or mentor and say, what do you see? What needs to be changed? What boundaries am I not respecting of myself or the other? This is where, for example, the dynamic of interfering that I mentioned in the initial part of this video can be troublesome because there can be a dynamic of getting involved in other people's problems and trying to solve them for them. This is a challenging karma because what you're doing is taking away the opportunity for the other to learn, to heal, to meet God, or whatever thing you want to describe that as, to improve themselves by handling something that you have a sense that you already know the answer to. So use more of the humility, that humble side of Virgo that says, I am here to help, but you need to ask for help. And so that's also a big part of this awareness, the self-awareness that says, I really want to have this meaning, a meaningful relationship, meaningful partnership, meaningful dynamics with work, with the seventh house can also be your clients if you work that way in terms of healing work. If you're doing that kind of thing, seventh house would be your patients or clients, depending on what kind of work that you do. And so having solid boundaries with those people and again, including if you are literally in the medical profession or in some kind of healing arts, recognizing where you also have your need for time for yourself. And so stripping away the need to be the savior. This is the dynamic of Virgo Pisces, and that can actually be super self-defeating for Virgo and for Pisces for that matter. And and yeah, so this is the big moment that in between the eclipses you have been witness to, you have been able to see for yourself how you want to show up. What's working for me? Is my life actually working, functioning well? Am I functioning well as the sort of captain of my ship? Because this is in your first house, so it affects everything that you do. Saturn is changing the way that you partner up, the way that you reach out into relationship, and Uranus is changing the way you show up out in the world in terms of your career or your sense of what you want to contribute in the world. So and of course, Pluto is changing your day-to-day life, health, maybe health or illness, work, um, just the day to day. Are you exercising? Are you doing nice things for yourself? Are you eating well? You've got Mercury, your ruler, in the second house, Mars in the second house. There might be something about how you are consuming or how you may feel support coming through other people. How's your body? How's your body looking? Because you've got Venus ruling the seventh house. Hold on. Venus is ruling the second house from your first house and sharing that in a kind of a cooperation we call a mutual generosity. That is where they're in each other's sign. So your ruler is swapping ideas with Venus in your sign. So maybe this is about your literal health. Are you taking care of your physical body? Are you taking care of your diet? Not to the point of obsession, but in a way that supports you. This is the whole point of the exercise. Um, you're going to find that choices and decision making become easier for you in the week following the eclipse and the few weeks after, because Mars moves into its own sign in your third house. So you'll be like crystal clear. This is where we're going with that. So use all of this time as background information. Make the most of this time, and I will see you in the next video, Virgo. And Libra, this is happening in your 12th house. So the axis of the 12th house and 6th house can have a lot to do with health and healing, can have a lot to do with your everyday contribution. You will have heard me speak quite a lot on the dynamic around the 6th house because that's where we've had a lot of activity since the beginning of 2025. Most especially because your exaltation ruler, Saturn, is in your sixth house, and you've got Venus in your 12th house, your ascendant ruler or sun, moon, or moon ruler for Libra, sun, moon, and ascendant. And so here what we're finding is a lot of activity around your everyday, the question of meaning in my life. What is the meaning of my life? Why do I do what I do? There's so much that speaks to that for you, Libra, because you've also got Uranus in the ninth house. What do I even believe anymore? What do I want? Why am I even here? And this is a really strong dynamic of transformation. It's a change that is coming from a way of being that is internal to you. This is the big theme of this period of time, from the beginning of January till the middle of 2026. As long as the nodes are here, this is the big theme. And this is a particularly big moment in the time of this big theme, where this dynamic is really about the shedding of an old skin that is saying, I can't do this anymore. I refuse to do this anymore. I'm not showing up this way anymore. Because as soon as this eclipse is finished, within a day, well, within hours, the moon moves into your sign. And then within a day, the sun moves into your sign. That's what we call the autumnal equinox, or at least the Libra equinox. And that's when everything starts again at zero Libra, moving us into the darker phase for the northern hemisphere, the lighter phase for the southern hemisphere. So it's all about change for yourself. It's all about an awareness. And this is why the symbolism of balance is extremely important for Libra, this equinox notion, as we go from the sort of mutability of Virgo, understanding what work needed to be done to get me to this place of harmony and balance. You want to take that to the nth degree in terms of what inner work can I do? What spiritual work can I do? What can I let go and let God? And what can I trust in terms of my inner understanding of my purpose in life? The South Node in the 12th house is fantastically spiritual, really rich place for the nodes to be. And you're starting afresh. So make the most of this, Libra, and I'll see you in the next video. And by the way, you have super support with Jupiter at the top of your chart, exalted. So you're looking up and you're getting a lot of support for this bigger picture change. I'll see you in the next video. Bye for now. Scorpio, your ruler's in the 12th house during this eclipse. So there's something going on in terms of your internal experience of life that is a part of this equation. But the eclipse itself is happening in the 11th house of your vision for your future, what it is that you want to change. Maybe how you connect with society in general. That's been changing a lot since the beginning of the year anyway. And how you want to find purpose and meaning as you strip away this attitude that you have towards yourself. Where can you be of service, but maybe through a place of more heart-centered generosity, creativity, compassion. Maybe this has something to do with a love relationship or children. Also, especially because Pluto, your modern ruler, is in the fourth house, so changing a lot about what you rely on psychologically, emotionally, materially, what makes you feel secure. And then Uranus in the eighth house is the house of intimacy as well. So something's changing. If it is about a love relationship, something's changing in a big way. Also because your ruler's in the 12th. And Venus is in the 11th, so maybe there's a new vision for the relationship itself, with reference to what goes on behind the scenes or between the sheets. This is the house of bed pleasures and the house of what is hidden from us, things that are happening behind the scenes, not so detectable. So there's a lot going on that can also relate to your unconscious process or to your spiritual process for that matter, especially because you've got Jupiter in the ninth. So you have really high visions for yourself at this time. Do also please watch the video I did about Saturn going into Pisces again. It's going to give you a lot of information about what is going on right now in terms of the opposition to this eclipse, because Saturn is slowing something down so that you reconsider um, and and concretize what's going on here in the fifth house. That is very much about your personal self-expression, about the way that you want to show up overall in your everyday life. What makes me happy? What do I need to make myself happy? Perhaps there's a sense of the old dream that I had that I thought would make me happy. It's not it anymore. That's not making me happy. Or even the idea that something external to you is going to make you happy, and you realize, oh, boom, there we go, mic drop moment. I realize nothing outside of me can make me happy. Now I realize I am in charge of my vision for the future, and this is this moment where you're shedding the skin, and recognizing this is the big moment of change with reference to how I reach out into society, with reference to how I am seeing myself in my future, or connecting with a friend or an elder sibling potentially as well, um, or friend groups, networks, groups, and so on. Yeah, and the Mercury that's ruling the eclipse is also in the 12th. So what you've gleaned in terms of the inter-eclipse period, the 10 days or so leading up to the eclipse, you really will be able to put to application in terms of working with your unconscious awareness, or working through spirit, working in a way that helps you see yourself more clearly from the invisible side of yourself, if you know what I mean. This might also have something to do with faraway lands, a relationship dynamic of someone who's far away, or you connecting with somebody far away, for either romance or for business gain. So the fifth house is ruled by Jupiter in the ninth, and then there's also your ruler in the 12th, where the ruler of the eclipse is also in the 12th. It's a lot about business, far away people you're working with, or people you want to be relating to for important reasons, either personal or professional. So there's a lot of dynamic around there. Think of it as something that needs reassessing and a serious reconsideration to make it work. It won't be happening fully until the beginning of 2026, because Saturn is slowing things down. Whatever the new start is, it's not a no, it's a not yet. Okay. See you in the next video. Sagittarius, this is happening in your 10th house. So quite a huge deal when you have eclipses happening in the 10th house or in the 4th house, like you did with the Pisces lunar eclipse, because it's changing really the backbone of your life, something to do with something incredibly important in the foundation of your life and the way that you show up. That's every time for Sagittarius, my dog comes around. I don't know if it's because she's got something for you guys, but anyway, I guess it's the limit of tolerance. So you're just going to have to wait, and we'll see you later. So you have this Saturn coming back into your fourth. Please watch the video that I did a couple of weeks ago about this Saturn moving back into Pisces. It's a significant passage that we need to integrate in terms of all of these eclipse periods of September. And the bigger theme of this new thing that you're starting in the house of your career, if you're not working any longer, it might be your social status in general. And this is for anybody anyway. It's your house of ambition, your public aims, your sense of what is your life all about, what is the meaning of my work, my life, giving it a meaning in terms of also how you get recognition. And maybe you have a sense of this is what I've been recognized for up until now, and that's not what I want any longer. Something is different, something comes through me in a different way. Now, your ruler is exalted in the eighth house, and so this might be about a new dynamic of an intimate relationship that is also changing your social status. And when I say new dynamic, we've got Uranus in the seventh, so this could go either way. It's a yes or a no to the relationship. That's up to your natal chart to decide. But it's a new dynamic that has you showing up in a different way, and or it's something to do with the what you're gleaning from that eighth house, which is about the sort of occult studies or deeper understanding of psychology, of the mystery stuff of life. And that is actually a part of what you're now wanting to do, or you're realizing what I have been doing up until now. It's just no longer interesting to me. I want all of my focus to go deeper into my being. So I'm showing up in a different way and putting more of my attention in what I need to be happy. My psychological nature, my intuitive self. This is huge for you in this year. Well, this year and a half, but especially while Jupiter is in your eighth. But the whole of 2025 and the first half of 2026 is really strongly connected to your intuition. And so this is also a big part of this dynamic. The ruler of the eclipse is in the 11th house of your future, how you connect and communicate with your groups. And maybe you're going to find a new affiliation, a new group that helps you through this new intention, this new way of showing up, or this new maybe new friends, quite literally, that you're going to make because you are actually changing. Venus rules your house of everyday work, so this could also be part of that dynamic that's literally around work, even if it's volunteer work. It's not, 10th house is not necessarily work you're paid for. It's your vocation. It could be just what you do when you step out your front door. So sometimes people who are retired say, I'm not working, or the blessed among you are financially independent and you just don't work. And so this is what you do when you go outside, and hopefully it's more than shopping. Pluto says in the third house, do more than just shopping. And you participate now. You reach out into communities. That Pluto in the third wants you to get more intensely involved. This could also be more involvement with or through a sibling as well, for that matter, an elder sibling, especially because it's also in the 11th house. And it's Mercury and it's Mars, so possibly a brother, big brother. Right, that's it, Sagittarius. I'll see you in the next video. And Capricorn, this is happening in your ninth house. So there's something that you may have had faith in, or that you may have been focusing on in terms of higher vision or study or belief system or philosophy of life, or even higher literal study. Like I'm finishing up on a degree, or I'm close to finishing a degree or a certificate. And now what? Now what? So your exaltation ruler, Mars, is in your 10th house, which is very strong because it's angular, but also it's showing a lot of ambition at this time. And that also is just about to slide into your 11th house, just as the sun and moon slide into your 10th house. And so this could be where you're kind of on the precipice of some new thing in terms of the work that you're doing, in terms of the dynamic around your future. Uranus is still in your sixth house until the 7th of November, but then it's going to be waffling back and forth between the 5th and 6th, trying to figure out how am I expressing myself? How do I bring what makes me happy into my everyday? So this dynamic over the next few months is still not very stable around the work story of your life. And also your ruler Saturn is moving back and forth between the third and the fourth house, also adding to that sense of something's changing here, something's dynamic, it's not quite ready yet. And it's based on what I'm understanding about a higher sense of meaning to my life, to my purpose, to my everyday contribution. A Capricorn in a recent video said that they're not at all chaotic or not chaotic, unstable in their work. Fantastic. If that's not happening, look for the other themes around the everyday sector of your chart. How are you managing your health? How are you managing your day-to-day life? What about obligations and obstacles that need to be overcome? That can also be a part of this story. But because this 10th house, 11th house, and the third, fourth house axis are so highly activated, including with your ruler involved, I suspect that this has a lot to do with the balance between your personal life and your professional life, or your personal life and your married life, your personal life and your outer participation in the world. So I do hope that this resolves itself. It won't at the period, at the time of this eclipse, you're going to know a lot more about where you want to go, but it's not necessarily going to resolve until your ruler is fully settled into the fourth house. So that's only February of next year, 20th of February next year. Please watch the video that I did on your ruler, Saturn moving into Pisces, and you'll hear a lot more about that. It's a very auspicious time, very favorable time for you to shed an aspect of perhaps also even ideology, or a kind of what's the word there? Mm, it's a just an idea that you're holding that actually might be an obstacle to your own personal advancement. Notice that you do have a lot of support coming through relationships, a lot of positive dynamics in relationship. This would be a great time to be thinking about changing jobs, moving along, retiring, moving in a different direction. Things are all go at this point, because as soon as the sun and moon move into the 10th, they're going to be trining Uranus in your sixth, and creating a grand air trine with Pluto. So that's part of this. I'm going to come back and talk more about this dynamic because there's a lot to say. I have to walk a dog and see my client coming up. So Capricorn, I know you'll appreciate that. I want to be in my integrity and stick to my schedule. So I'll see you in the next video. Aquarius, this is happening in your eighth house of your more intimate area of life. It's intimacy, whether it's psychological or emotional or even physical with another, what you receive from a partner. Now, generally speaking, with the South Node there, we're not getting a whole hell of a lot from our partners, but we do have some mitigating factors here, which is that Venus is there and this is a new moon. So it's a new way of experiencing that area of life. The eighth house can also represent overcoming fears, overcoming family patterns, patterns of emotional or psychological nature that might have you, again, kind of holding yourself back and not really able to feel confident moving out into the world. Letting those go, letting go of family secrets, letting go of family inherited patterns around taboo issues, sexual issues, inherited restrictions around certain things. This will have been a big theme in the last few weeks, so it's not like this is new. And even since January, where the South Node has been, but this has been a big part of certainly the 10 days before this eclipse. Well, Mercury became more and more integrated with South Node, Sun, and Moon. And it's now in the ninth house of a sense of a higher vision or purpose for yourself. This is part of the dynamic of the meaning that you want to bring into your life. This is a crystalline version of that, where Saturn is in your second house of what is my value, your ruler, Saturn, what is my value? What meaning do I give to my life? And North Node is there in the second. So, what is my overall sense of my value, but also and self-esteem, but also in terms of valuables and stuff? What's my relationship to stuff and money? We have Uranus in the fifth house, your modern ruler. And so there may be something that you're willing to take a bit of a risk on here, taking a bit of a gamble on. And it's about how you show up. This is in an air trine with Pluto at the beginning of your sign, and then trining your fifth house of self-expression or even children, investments, taking risks in all kinds of different ways. And then that Uranus is also trining, it has just trined Mercury, but it will be the next day trining the sun and the moon, within hours, the moon, and then the sun following in the next day, which is the equinox. And I'll come back and talk a lot more about that in a separate video. So this is a really fantastic dynamic time. You're going to have something that you're willing now to take action on after understanding this vision, this higher meaning, this sense of where I can strip away old family baggage, all this stuff I'm still carrying from my grandmother or my early childhood, these kinds of things. This is also what Chiron has been stripping away for many years already in your third house. Um, and when Mars then also the next day after this eclipse, when it moves into your 10th house, it's going to square Pluto in your first house. I'll do again a separate video on these things because otherwise we can go on for days. And this is going to give you an extra oomph and a feeling of, okay, this is now it. This is where I have to take action. You might be compelled because of someone to take action, or you might just feel like the moment is ripe. I want to do this new thing. It's just that at the moment, it's not that you shouldn't try, but it's going to be that this is a testing period where there's going to be a two steps forward, one step back kind of energy around this because of the Saturn opposition to this lunation. The eclipse is being opposed by Saturn, something to do with either family obligations or limited finances or a need to reorganize the way that you show up for family or the way they show up for you or the way that you're working through your even your health regime. You've got Jupiter in the sixth, so there's a lot of work, a lot of focus on health, perhaps also, but it's not necessarily bad. But that can also mean that there's something that you're realizing here that to be able to sustain things, I need to do a bit of work on myself, and it may be psychological healing, it may be intimate healing, it may be emotional healing, or it could be just I need a better diet. I need a better way of living my life. So that I can live my life through a sense of a higher meaning. And this is definitely helped by the transit of Mars and Mercury through your ninth house, where there's been also a lot of attention paid on this sense of what am I fighting for? What's my life being all about? All right, lots more to say, but we'll say it in the next video, and I'll see you there. Pisces, this is of course extremely important for Pisces. The Pisces Virgo axis since the beginning of 2025 has been extremely powerfully activated. And here it's about relationship. More, it's a lot, you're always going to be part of the major focus of this period of time. until the middle of 2026. But at this particular moment, the focus is on shedding or relieving or letting go or separating yourself from or releasing patterns of habit, patterns of a way of relating in the house of relationship, in the house of other. It may be an actual relationship that is being let go, but it also could be that the way you are in relationship is being changed and let go. So Venus is your exaltation ruler, and she's over here in Virgo. There's a dissatisfaction. Let's face it, there's something that's not quite right, and it's coming from a feeling of emotional insecurity, and that's there in the fourth house, or maybe even a physical sense of insecurity around where I live. So there's a funny noise going on here. Yes, that's the Uranus in the fourth house. Weird noises going on in the home. And so the insecurity or the instability that you feel might be affecting your relationship, or it might be affecting your sense of, is it possible to make this work? And a lot of the focus of attention right now is on that area of intimacy. Mars has already been there for quite some time, and Mercury is there now for the next 3 weeks. And so this is part of of course, Mercury ruling this eclipse. This is part of this bigger cycle, but listen to the introduction if you haven't already. There's a lot that's favorable that you will get a lot of information about in terms of you intuiting things or you knowing, just knowing. And that's your thing, Pisces. You just know things. And especially so because Jupiter is in your fifth house. And it does represent love, obviously children and your creative impulse. Um, the fifth house is also wisdom that you've come through. Now, again, it depends on what you've got there in the fifth house, but it's the wisdom that you're born with that you bring into this lifetime. So it's not just by transit that all of a sudden necessarily things are going to come flooding through you, but the Jupiter that's in the fifth is still very, very supportive. It's very harmonious for relationship dynamics, for new love and so on, but it's not super stable at this point. So if you do meet somebody, make sure you give it a bit of a road test. That this needs to stand the test of time, and that's for you what this Saturn is representing here in the first house. So slow your roll, make sure that you are clear and more stable in yourself so that you're not feeling that you need to fill yourself up with the other. This is part of the dynamic between Pisces and Virgo on the first and seventh axis, where there can be a lot of neediness in relationship, um, where you might find now that you're kind of over it, and it's like, oh wait, I'm not that person anymore. I don't want to be in that way anymore. I need this to look different and feel different. Um, what else is going on? Yeah, and so keep in mind also that in a sort of a month from now, Neptune will also be in your first house with that Saturn, or at least coming back towards that Saturn. And so that's going to be a part of the story as well, of really seeing yourself in a different way, clarifying that because it wasn't always so clear before, but clarifying that as well. So think of this as the beginning of a process. You're planting a seed. It's a new moon planting seeds for a longer cycle that will really show very, very clear results about who you are in relationship and who you should be in relationship with. And that includes business partners, by the way, or clients if you work that way as well. Very favorable because of the favorable energy that your ruler, Jupiter, is giving you. Neptune is your modern ruler. I tend to focus more on the Jupiter. I usually use only the traditional rulers. I'm just saying this for the peanut gallery that still likes to work on these rulerships. I consider them secondary and added information as opposed to the primary source of information. So do think in terms of Neptune coming back in, that can also change your sense of where you might feel disillusioned or disappointed in how your life has been shaping up. Use the Saturn energy to resolve where life needs to change. This is also part of the dynamic of the Virgo new moon. Listen to the introduction for more on that. Listen to the video that I did a couple of weeks ago with Saturn going back into your sign, and know that that's part of the next few months of personal development that you're in. You will not recognize yourself in the spring or in the new months, the early months of next year, and you will have grown that much. All right, Pisces, make the most of this, and I will see you all in the next video. Thanks for watching. I keep forgetting to say it, but you know, please like and subscribe. Thank you for being here. I do really appreciate you, and I will see you in the next one. Bye.